Hey guys, Keith Keller, Melbourne, Australia. And this is live streaming 101. There is so much going on here that I really need 3 heads and 5 hands. But here we are on this brand new site, which we're exploring called StreamYard. It's not brand new, of course, but it's brand new to me. And we've got a brand new show this year called, why are digital events better than real life? And in many, many ways in 2021, they are better. Friends of mine can't come to even these sessions. A friend of mine, Mark Wittenberg in Calgary, was due to come today, but he has to get a COVID test in Calgary. There's a bit of an outbreak there in his office, and he's a bit worried about that. And so he's stuck in a snowstorm. So that's real life. That's the world we live in. So what you'll notice, what we're doing here is we're streaming to Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. We're using StreamYard at this stage, but we will start experimenting with other things. Last week we had a really massive experiment which went really belly up. And if you were part of that, I apologise. But anyway, that's all part of the fun. And we did save that by coming here to StreamYard. We'll talk about this in a minute, because part of the live streaming adventure is that you've got to have the chutzpah to be able to think on the fly. While that theme was going, I was tweeting on Periscope and sending the DMs to the team, and there's no way around that because there's only one of me. So anyway, without further ado, we're talking about the idea that digital events and the digital world could indeed be better than real life. It's a bit of a controversial topic, but I've got some good friends here today to talk about this. Sally Eaves has stayed up in London, 1 a.m. it is there. And I really, really want to talk to her about this. Doyle is called in from Perth, and Irene is calling in from Connecticut. So let's get it started with my friend Sally, who may have to go very shortly because she's having trouble staying awake. And Sally, tell us about what you're doing there and your big event tomorrow, and also why you think digital events really are indeed better than real life in some ways.
Oh, thank you, Keith. It's lovely to join you all. I'm actually quite wired for sound, as the expression goes at the minute. So, yeah, I'm really up for the conversation. But I think for me, one thing I'll mention that you touched on it in the top 10 kind of intro, but I'll go into a bit more detail. I would say democratizing access and the education side of this. I think one of the big beauties of events that we've seen is that audiences that may not have been able to attend before, and not just about geographies, but sometimes even ticket access, etc., we've been able to widen out access to other people, and that's been a real joy. There's an event I did just the other week, and it was done on a kind of round the clock theme. So we had a live stream one every hour for 24 hours with people from countries. Yeah, literally, it was on the dot for 25 minutes going through like around the sun effectively, which is absolutely awesome.
And what did you do that on? What site?
That was a mixture. So LinkedIn Live, we did some Twitter, and we also did some StreamYard. We did an experiment with different platforms, basically. But that was fantastic, and it was very current. It felt like a true experience, and a bit like what you were saying just now. It doesn't always go right straight away, but that's part of the fun of it. And I think people appreciate when things are truly live, and it's creating an actual proper experience and feeling like part of that.
The thing is, they know that we're real. I mean, I'm right here. There's only one of me. I'm working from my home office, and we had a big show planned with Mark, and Mark was going to talk about CES, a big event that was on 2 weeks ago with 1 billion views on the videos on Twitter. But, he got to work today, and, someone in the office has got COVID, so he's got to ship himself down to get a test, and there's a snowstorm and he can't make it. He's not coming back. He can't get back in time. And
Calgary's such a rough place. I'm originally from Calgary, so I know.
You've got experience here, mate. How would that feel?
Oh, it's horrible, quite honestly. I mean, don't even add COVID, but when you get a snowstorm in Canada, Calgary's notorious for them. But it's quite uncomfortable. You got blowing snow. It's obviously below zero. You can't always see. There's it freezes the roads. There ice. They try to put salt on the roads and that, but then it melts and then it refreezes because it's too cold for salt kind of thing. So it's not very fun. And then you add in COVID, going to get a COVID test, not much fun. But anyways.
Yeah. Well, I'll pick up on what Sally's talking about, democratizing content. We've talked about this a lot. This idea that I'm in Melbourne, Australia, but I can go to an event in Calgary, in Perth, in London, indirectly because I can tap in. And that gives me a very good chance to talk about the event you've got tomorrow selling. How is that? Is that online too? I'm guessing it is.
Is a mixture. So there's two things going on. So the first one, just referencing an event, not CES, but one last week, which I've talked to you about, Keith, which was Conquer the Cloud, or Conquer Every Cloud. And that's an event that's still available with 60 days content available. Again, that whole thing about democratizing, it's still there. And I wanted to flag that one because I just thought it was such a truly interactive event. I love the spread of content. So it's very much, as the title suggests, it's very much a cloud-oriented event. But it went far beyond technology. So there were streams around leadership. They had expert guests from space, for example, from music. And it was very curated, I think is the word I would put. It was into making that done in a way. So even like the music you had breakout sessions. They've created a Spotify playlist there that's available to everybody who's attending it, and it makes you feel you're part of that continued experience and you're reliving it. You're part of that community. It felt very orientated like that, which I thought was fantastic. And in terms of the one you mentioned tomorrow, that's very much kind of an edge to cloud feel. So it's very much a training day. It's truly interactive. And off the back of that, participants can potentially join a 3-month innovation program. And so it's very collaborative. It's a partnership opportunity. And again, it's got that tech element, but very much around education and mentorship and things like that as well. So I'm just seeing so many different styles of events at the moment, tapping into these different areas, but really which I think is brilliant to see.
Look, this is really brilliant, because what happened last week, we tried a site. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't really want to go out into the public and tell all of our disasters. But what I can tell you is that we saved the day with a bit of quick thinking, and we all came to StreamYard. Now, StreamYard is a site that's $25 a month. It works every time. It looks great. And we saved the process so much so that we created a hashtag live, not live. And our friend Tony Flaith came up with that idea. And we turned a potential disaster into really quite an amazing story. And Irene, I want to hear from you what you thought of what happened last week, because one of the fears that people have about all this digital stuff is it's hard and it might go wrong. And it did, but it was fun, wasn't it?
Yep, Keith, exactly. So we had amazing speakers with that. We had amazing company with fantastic guests. And we wanted to try Hop-In platform, okay?
Oh, you said it. You said it there. Okay, that's all right. You can say it.
I'm going to say it because we're the enthusiasts. We're early adopters, okay? We're playing with things and we're letting people know what we feel, all right? So Hop-In, bless their heart, okay? We did have a dedicated Hop-In person with us with the active account, a paying client, okay?
A paying client. They paid money to try.
Exactly. And that paying client was supposed to get 5 of us backstage, right, to talk to the audience. So the experience turns out to be, it's what Keith kind of, already talked about. The experience was a mess. We were speed dating with Doyle. We were speed dating with a couple of other backstage. We could not find anything. We could find each other on the very random networking experience. So unfortunately for us and for Hop-In, the experiment did not go well because frankly, it was hard for our wonderful host to arrange it all for us, okay? She was clueless. We were clueless. So to me, that means the platform is not so easy to get on with. That means if I want to run an event and I will invite my audience right now, I'm sure Hop-In is a wonderful company, but this is what we saw. So if I want to invite my audience and I cannot guide my audience around the tool, that smells like a big disaster.
Yeah, so it's an accident waiting to happen. And the thing that was really great is that everyone was very good sport about it. All the speakers, like a couple of my really good mates, took time out of their day. It was night for Tony. Johnny runs a chocolate shop. He had to take time off work. And they were all very good
Tony
about
from
it.
Edmonton. Shout out to Edmonton.
Oh, yeah. I keep saying that, don't I? I keep saying it.
No. Tony, you were right.
Tony is from Edmonton, the claim to fame with the big shopping centre there, and a big sort of rivalry there between Calgary and Edmonton. But the point was that mates of mine took time out of their day. And this is the very key point, separate to who the platform was. Erica had paid money, done a campaign for 2 weeks, and had 12 paying customers on her books that were eager to get that information. She had to then go back to them and say, look, I'm terribly sorry. It didn't work. Here's your money back, and please trust me again. And so what we're doing here with this show, we're trying everything. We've already done a 15-part show on this, live streaming Decoded, which I'm very proud of.
Yeah. I think we're in a bit of a transition, Keith, quite honestly. Like we kind of know where we want to go, but we don't necessarily know how to get there. And there's obviously a lot of obstacles in the way with the platforms and everything else that's we're trying to set up. So I would say, look, it's not perfect, but I think it's pretty darn good for where we are at. Can it be better? Absolutely. Right. Yeah. But a lot of these tools are kind of adapting as they go as well. It's like obviously a continuous a design process. But the fact is that this is what we have. So we're trying to match what can we actually do here? What would we like to do? Can we do this, and test it out and experiment, which is fine. And yeah, sometimes it doesn't work out, but that's okay. We had some troubles when we were doing our show earlier, Keith, with, one of the Restream, right? When they first started to add in their capability to have like a production studio, kind of like StreamYard. And yeah, it was tough, but I think that, everybody realizes that, and we need to sort of focus in on, okay, well, how do we deliver the best digital experience possible at the moment? Maybe that's it.
2021.
We're
because
at the moment.
Like I was chatting to someone recently, and they said, "Oh, look, we ran an event on GoToMeeting."
Yeah, and you can.
And GoToMeeting predates Zoom. And Zoom's been around since 2015. So each year we are constantly adjusting. We've tried this site, turned out to be a lemon. We're not using it again. We're right in the process, and you've got to watch this. We're going to do some shows on this. We're right in the process of trying a site called airmeet.com. We love it. We just love it. And from what we can tell, it's really robust. And Doyle is very right when he says that this show is fine, but all it is it's a two-dimensional image of you watching us with some comments on the side. Whereas AirMeet has a social lounge. They have all these facilities. Tell me, guys, what you think of AirMeet. Have you heard of it, Sally?
Yeah, I've done a bit of an experiment with that as well, and I like what I've seen on there. And the other one that I'm trying, I've been looking at, it's like a version of Spaces. So it's more, so I do some keynotes and things like that, and I miss doing that. I love that. I'm kind of very kinetic, if you know what I mean. So I like to walk around and really feel part of an audience and stuff. And so I'm doing a test, so it's very immersive, and you feel like you're like in a theatre, in that roundhouse kind of feel, and you're using AR as part of that experience.
Is that Veritas? Is that the Veritas platform?
No, this is something that's in beta at the moment. So it's using AR and extended reality. So
can you talk about it a bit more? Can you tell us what it is, or is it still sort of under wraps?
It's still under wraps. So it's meant to be going kind of live in terms of people knowing about it in April. So I might be able to get you to have a look behind the scenes if you fancy having a look. But what I like so far is really good. So my concern is making sure it's available to enough people to make that really durable. But certainly for smaller events and things like that, I think it's got a lot to offer because you feel like you're part of that room. So for me, it's looking at ways, how do you make this more of an experience? I think that's the area, really looking at the experience area, and that made it feel like that, both not just from an audience point of view, but as a presenter, in fact, almost quite tactile. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward to how that's going. So yeah, I'm one of the testers for that. I've been involved in some of the development.
Look, I know that Irene is we've been talking a lot about the wow experience. Like StreamYard is fine, it works, it looks great, but it's a bit flat. What are you excited by what Sally's just said there, Irene? We haven't actually even talked about this. This is a brand new site which uses AR and VR and AI. This is where it's all going, isn't it?
Absolutely. So AR, VR, it's on everyone's tongue. Sally, everyone close to tech world, right? We're also easily excited, the next big shiny toy. And I'm coming from that universe. So I do want to feel, what businesses can do for customers in a way that AR and VR is now reachable. Okay. It used to be crazy expensive thought. All right. And right now it seems to be with democratizing tech in a way that, yes, we can use for broader audiences and broader, events. At the same time, right, we have to be with business hat on, right? We have to really calculate benefits versus, costs, versus energy consumption versus, because I'm reading a lot, right, about how AR and VR is evolving, but it's not there for really, for everyone to run their events VR only.
Well, let me pick up on that.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, you go, Doyle. You go.
Yeah. No, this one I enjoy talking about too. But to me, we've kind of entered this state of Zoom fatigue, right? It's quite a common term, and I think that's because it is two-dimensional. It's like me looking into a webcam kind of thing, and you guys looking back and listening to my talking head type thing. So I'm not sure, and Sally, love to hear your insight too, is that if we have a situation where we just add another technology into it, so okay, now I can put on a VR headset. If I don't actually have the foundations of a good event, a curated event, I don't think it matters if I have a headset on or not. It's still going to be a crap event, and I'm going to have VR fatigue because I can't actually engage. I can't actually, there's no sort of emotional connection to what I'm hearing and seeing. What are your thoughts, Sally? Like, what's the future? Is it actually VR? Because I don't see that, because for business anyways, perhaps for specific industries.
I think it's a combination, I would say. So going back to your point, and something I mentioned earlier, curation is key. So I always say, technology is a big part of everything that we're doing. It's a fantastic conduit, but it's part of something. It's not the only thing. You have to have all these different elements together. So curation is key. It's how it's designed. The thought process into that is absolutely fundamental. Everything, but technology can lift that experience for sure. I think what excites me, another event I'm doing tomorrow is about 5G and 5G core. So we've got that underpinning technology. It makes things like VR, AR, and extended reality even as well. It makes that doable because you've got all the benefits of low latency, etc., etc. So it's opening up all these different use cases that before you wouldn't have the performance, you wouldn't have the reliability. And as Irene mentioned as well, device price points are coming down as well. So all those different factors are coming together. So I think it will improve it. From the tests I've done, it does give a more emotional connection. It's kind of enlivening different senses. So that's where I see where we're going. And I've written something recently about the Internet of Senses. I think technology is helping to bring that to life. So I think it does overcome Zoom or other platform fatigue, because you are bringing different senses into play. That has to be part of curation, design, that thought and care that goes into what you're actually producing and making sure it's right for the audience. So it all comes together. It's holistic but integrated, I would say.
Do you see though a good use? How would a business use that though? Maybe let me ask you that. And is there that adoption rate too, to say, well, there's 1,000 other businesses who use it, who have that technology, therefore I can have a group of 1,000, theoretically. But how would a business use it? And I'm talking a small business, right? Enterprise, okay, they just throw money at it and away they go. But for small to medium enterprise, small business rather, how would they use that?
Again, context is key, isn't it? As you mentioned there, it has to be if it's relevant to the particular use case of your product, your service, whatever you're delivering. And I think, in terms of what we're talking about here, this isn't for next month, the next 2 months. I'm talking about the trajectory that we're building here. I would say in terms of mainstream. So at the moment, this is more for dedicated audiences, I would argue. But CES would be a great example of this. Some of those product devices, some of those demos that you were seeing, if you could feel that you were truly part of that experience, I think that technology we're talking about here would bring that to life more for some of those demonstrations and feeling out what it would be. And if you can't touch and feel those particular products and services, if you can do it using extended reality or AR, etc., etc.
It certainly could work in its
experience. So that would be a good example there. Off the top of my head, I would say that one of the most recent events we've done would work really well in that type of setup.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. For a specific type of event, or whatever, like a product demo, fantastic. If you can see the product, if you can, handle it, that sort of thing. But fundamentally, I've been looking, a lot of the digital adoption over the last year, the changes because of COVID, has really highlighted the fact that there's not a lot of businesses. I think the penetration globally is on average about 25% that have sort of that digital adoption rate. So in other words, most businesses barely know how to set. 3/4 of businesses barely know how to have a proper digital foundation. So if we're kind of
Yeah.
topping that off with a technology that's really cool, like, let's be completely honest, it's very cool. I see another gap happening where it could be like a VR gap, that we're not going to most businesses won't need it perhaps, but how will most businesses deal with that?
I just spoke this week with Norman Katz. He's influencer on supply chain and analytics. And he shared he thought that, Doyle, you would appreciate about digital divide only growing within companies, because he throws out like amazing numbers. Speaking of digital adoption, we're lagging behind. And the company up to 100 million in revenue, 100, forget about 10 million company, 100 million in revenue, they are not going to be your early kind of excited adapters. They have to make, the end meets. So it's not yet there yet. It's for big tech and big conferences with consumer focus, I think. Mm-hmm.
Well, let me pick up on, say, this huge, unbelievable trend called Clubhouse, an audio-only app. Who would have thought? Anyway, so you've got this idea, and Sally will relate to this because she, like me, is an Android person. So you're talking about digital divide. This is really powerful. You've got 6 million people with an iPhone, some people buying an iPhone just to take it. You've got 6 million people trying this brand new app that's very, very exciting for the people that have an iPhone. And then you've got 87% of the population thinking, mate, I don't have an iPhone. Do I want to buy an iPhone just to try this app? And this is what we call the digital divide. Do I need to buy a piece of tech just to have a chat? And this is, I think, what we're going to start seeing. A friend of mine in LA who's watching at the moment, she gets 17 megabytes a second in her house for internet. I mean, she's not going to be able to do VR in her house. So we've got this idea that some people just don't have the tech to do AR and AI and VR. They're struggling just to get their phone to work. And businesses are the same, but for a different reason. They can't get their head around it. And I think you're right, Doyle. I think probably 25% is a conservative number of people that are adopting this. Would you agree? I lost you.
So, sorry, do I agree about the adoption rate, or?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of things I really want to pick up on here. There is a digital divide between people who can afford the tech, the people that can afford the speed of the tech, and then there's this sort of difficulty factor. Like, from what I can tell, because I'm an Android guy, Clubhouse isn't that hard to use, but I don't have an iPhone. So do I just wait?
That's marketing. Like, honestly, that's good marketing, because they've sort of created that exclusive audience that it's part of how they just probably, I'm thinking strategically thought about this before they launch, because that creates a limited group, right? And technically it is a beta test, right? It's not meant to be a worldwide thing specifically. So they're actually ahead of the game here, because that methodology that they use to create sort of the oversubscribed method, where they have more people that want in than they can actually let in. And it could be a technical reason too, actually, potentially, because they had Elon Musk on last week, and we found out that the maximum room size was 5,000 people.
Yeah, blew up.
But it's still a limitation. So perhaps that's, a hardware issue, a software issue, whatever. So it is intended to be like a rollout. So it's marketing. How do we actually get a core group of users who've done a fantastic job of creating that buzz around it, because of the limitations, because only certain people can get it. It's not sign up and away you go like Facebook, right? It's easy. Anybody can do it. So they've created that whole environment that allows it to be an exclusive club for right now. And honestly,
right? They created this scarcity of resources that no one can get in. And if I wouldn't have friend Doyle Buehler with me, I would never be able to get in. So thank you, Doyle. But the feeling is really interesting that 87%, population cannot get in. So let's see how that goes. Because I spoke today with our friend Erica McKenzie. We exchanged few thoughts on Clubhouse particularly. And she, in her business hat, not her easily excited personality about new tech, but in her business hat, she expressed that, most businesses will wait and see. Okay, so jumping on the next very trendy toy.
Yeah.
Can I ask your opinion, Sally? Can I ask you? I know it's getting. I promised you that I'd give you a half-hour warning, and it's been half an hour. If you're getting tired, I want to give you permission to go. But can I just ask you one question? As a Samsung person, but also a very, highly technical person, what's your thoughts about this whole Clubhouse phase, this vibe, this fad, this buzz? How did it happen, and what does it teach us?
Well, I work with different companies, so rather than just Samsung, I'm an Android person though. But yeah, but I agree actually with what Doyle was just saying in terms of the way this has been set up. I do think it is creating a very specific community, and it's that kind of fear of missing out. Like that's the way that's come across, as Irene would mention as well. The invites that are coming through and things like that, it makes you feel like if you're not in that, you're missing out on a certain type of experience. So I think that's how that's been built up. So what I really wanted to mention was about inclusion. So we've talked about the digital divide a few times in this conversation. And I would say it's on different levels, and we've got to make sure we don't forget that. So even within like the EU is one example. Some research came out last week. 17% of people still report that self-report, as feeling that they're digitally excluded or digitally illiterate in the sense that
how many? 17%.
17%, yeah. In terms of like searching and things like that. So we've got all these different levels. So you've got areas like that. I would call it digital literacy. So there's the comfort factor with using different types of technology. So we're going layer by layer by layer. Then there's the accessibility of the technologies. And so we've got to talk about, reliable data service, whether you've got a certain type of phone, as you were saying there, but in many cases about having mobile internet. So we've got to look at it from all these different layers. So we've talked about, obviously I brought up about AR, VR and extended reality, but underpinning all of that, you've got to have data, you've got to have mobile. And so there's so many differences in this. So when we look at digital inclusion, we've got to look at it across all those different access points. So a lot of the work I do is actually tackling that head on.
Wow.
And I'm very, very involved. It's one of my core areas. And the other thing is well-being and mental health, if I could just bring that up as well.
Yeah.
As one of the impacts of the pandemic, and again, there's a report that's coming out in a week's time on this very subject. Generation Z, above all others, feel the most isolated and anxious, and have probably suffered the most. That's what's coming through from this new research. But they're actually finding technology as a way to overcome that. So I'm involved in a project that's using AR and VR to help people work through particular problems. So that's really interesting. But also, there's a real adoption rate for AI because you feel safer. Potentially having that safe space to talk to AI about how you're feeling rather than the real person, particularly in the workplace. And so there's some fantastic. So I'll be able to share this out on Twitter and LinkedIn, etc. when this goes live in a week's time. But there's some fascinating research showing about the adoption rate, how comfortable you are. I think for me, it's about this people-tech partnership and those complementary strengths coming together.
Brilliant. Jesus, is very interesting because there's so many areas. Yeah. There's so many areas. There's like in one respect, there's all the fast and funky stuff.
Yeah.
Clubhouse is fast and funky for the 6 million people in using it, but 87%, let's be very clear here when we're talking about digital divide, 87% of the world cannot use Clubhouse. Now that's not fair. That's not fairness. That's not what I would call fairness. I'm taking
to be fair.
Yeah, life wasn't meant to be easy.
I couldn't get on to LinkedIn Live for a while, and you're still waiting.
And I still don't have it. I've been waiting. I've tried 4 times to get onto LinkedIn Live.
It's been like a year plus. So,
and I actually started on September 7th to get my LinkedIn Live license, if you like, and. In that regard, I often ask the question, how long would you wait at a brand new restaurant if you're really hungry? 45 minutes is a brand new restaurant, want to try it, got to go there, everyone's there. But after 45 minutes, common sense kicks in and says, mate, I'm hungry.
No,
I'm just going to get a pizza.
It's always worth it.
It does for certain people, but not for everybody. Some people, like, for example, you have people still today waiting overnight when Apple releases a new product, right? What does that
tell you? When they get grand final tickets.
Yeah, or grand final tickets. There you go. That tells you that people who are very super fans will go to, pretty much any extent to get what is the latest and greatest. So it doesn't wear off. Like perhaps you would say, yeah, you know what, 45 minutes, I'm out of here. I'm hungry. I'm going. And yeah, I probably would too. But the fact is that some restaurants have really cultivated that oversubscribed model where there's more demand than they can supply, and they've created that deliberately, some accidentally, but some deliberately. Apple has created it deliberately, right? They've manufactured demand in advance of the product release. That's why they have people waiting outside overnight and camping out and that sort of thing. But the fact is with Clubhouse, that's really what we've seen here in play, is that there are people that are enthusiastic about it. I've tried it, and honestly, I find it
Don't like it. Have you tried Spaces though? Have you tried Spaces by comparison?
No, I haven't actually. But it's one of the first apps where I've actually you can kind of let your guard down. Excuse me, let your guard down a little bit. Like here with video, it's fantastic, but I've got to have the lights. I've got to make sure I've showered and shaved and all that kind of stuff. So that's important to most
that's
of
not
us.
a bad habit, Doyle. Okay, sometimes you go to shower. So yeah,
I had to put on makeup on my nose so it's not bright and shiny. So you kind of have to prepare for those shows. But with something like Clubhouse, it's like I'm just talking into my phone, and that's all. Nobody can see me. I can walk around the house. I can do
there's a freedom there, isn't there? There's a freedom in that.
Freedom, and it's the only app that I've used that I've actually, other than obviously some of the basic ones, but engaged with. Walking around and carrying it and listening in and saying.
Did you ever use Anchor?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. But it didn't catch on because there's no community. It's me talking to myself. Right here, I'm talking to others, and that's really, I think, what the shift here is that it's an environment where I can get all four of us. We can just have a conversation, and away we go. If anybody else wants to join in, cool. They don't have to primp and get ready. It's like, here, this is a question, or what do you think about this topic? And it's very open. It's very authentic.
I thought today that Clubhouse could be loosely described as blab without video. What do you think of that?
What was the first word? Blood? Did you say?
Blab without video. Because Blab allowed you to talk to four people. Anyone could join. There was no limit. You didn't have to have an iPhone. But the point was that anyone could join, and there was this community, wasn't there?
Yeah.
I haven't forgotten you, Sally. You yell out if you need to go. If you're getting tired, you don't need to ask permission to leave. You just go to sleep. Are you still with us?
I'll stay for another quarter of an hour, and then I'll drop off. Yeah.
Okay.
It's getting near to 2. Yeah.
I'll let Sally talk. I want to take
what are your thoughts on Clubhouse being Blab without video? Does that sort of resonate as a possible model? Did you ever try Blab?
I used it a little bit, and I think that's probably a fair comparison. To be fair, I think what you said about freedom, though, I think that does make sense. And also, I'm noticing at the moment people, particularly with extended lockdowns and stuff like that, that ability to be moving around the place and having those continued conversations, combining it with exercise and things like that as well. I think that is an interesting area where I think it can have benefits. But it's that community freedom, I think, is an interesting area. So I'm interested in from that point of view. But I do think, going back to the whole thing about democratization, we need spaces, whatever they're called, where everyone can be part of it easily. So for me, that's the interesting area that we need to work on.
Well, let me pick up on the phrase spaces, because Clubhouse was started in April 2020. I Googled this last night. Spaces started in December 2020. So Spaces obviously wasn't first to market, but Anchor, which was an audio-only app to allow you to podcast, was created in 2015. So we've got actually some history, but as Doyle says, there's no community. So we're now starting to see, and there's a video version of this called Haps, which I love, and Haps is exactly what we're trying to talk about here, but it's got video added. There's a community. StreamYard, for instance, allows you to broadcast and have these great broadcasts, but there's no community other than this small little section on the side where I can see comments. And a big hello to Olivia and Michelle, who are listening in on their respective sites. Please feel free to comment on whatever site you're watching on. But there's a very limited community. With Haps, for instance, Haps TV, they take this idea and they have a community. So I think, Doyle, you are right, that community is the point, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because this is the democratization version of broadcast TV. Like, let's be completely honest here. There's nothing fancy about it. There's the technology is there to allow that. I can broadcast from wherever I am, homework, office, around the world, you name it. But it's still the same thing. I'm broadcasting to you. So I think these new tools that are going to really create that swell of engagement are the ones that allow for that community. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we have an event? Yeah, everybody can come up to the stage, or everybody can connect with each other, or how do we amplify that digital experience? It's by creating that community fundamentally, and some are and some aren't. If I go to HAPS, it's great, and it's a little bit better because it's very interactive. There's a lot of people asking questions. You can kind of get in, see who this person is, and away you go. So it's got that level of that, but it really fundamentally has to shift. And I think one of those shifts is with a Clubhouse, because they've enabled that. They've said, hey, the community is really important here. They've shifted that broadcast only model, and that's why Anchor, it started 5 years ago, and it's obviously had a user base and that sort of thing. But what's missing? It's like a podcast where I have to listen to you talk, and maybe you have some great guests, but fundamentally I can't join in that conversation.
Yeah.
So it's just a different way of experiencing that experience. And I think it's becoming clear that we want something that, hey, I want to talk about this. I've got my ideas. I've got my opinions. Let's talk.
Well, let me pick up on this, and we're coming up to the top of the hour, and I want to give Sally permission to go, but I want to talk about this idea of the community, because I've been watching a lot of Netflix lately, and I'm starting to get sick of the idea that I'm just sitting on the couch and passively watching a show that has been created in the past and served up to me when I want. But initially, that sounded like such a cool idea, but then I thought, well, I'm just sitting here. I actually have nothing to do. I mean, I want to do something. Can I interact with the characters? So next Monday for us, Sunday in the US, I'm going to watch the Super Bowl.
Right, but what do you do when you're watching Netflix? You start to pick up your phone when you get bored, right? So what if you had that whole experience?
That's
with
right.
Your phone and Netflix rather connected together.
And so you can watch this next week on Monday. I think 2:00 the game starts here. I'm going to tweet my head off while a touchdown! Yeah. Tom Brady's gone to this brand new.
Get on HAPS, Keith.
So, there's going to, like Tom Brady, amazing story. Tom Brady leaves this company, this site he's been with for 20 years, goes to an unknown place in this small town in Florida. Suddenly they're in the Super Bowl, and they could win because of this one dude called Tom Brady. So I'm going to tweet about that. Tom Brady's the quarterback for this. What's that?
Keith, you do a HAPS play-by-play, okay? So you film yourself watching the Super Bowl and you talk, and
I'm sure there will already be doing that. But can you see what I'm saying? Right? I could watch the game. I could watch the game, and I could enjoy the game and have a beer and some popcorn and some corn chips or whatever products they're selling, Doritos maybe. But the point is that I get much more joy when I'm interacting with people who are all going, hey, man, I'm going for Tampa Bay today. I reckon they can win this. All right, no worries. I'm going for Kansas City because I like the colors, And so you're having a banter. And someone scores a touchdown, or someone catches the ball, or someone breaks their leg, and then suddenly there's a story going on. And I feel involved in that story. And so picking up on what you said, Doyle, I think the idea of VR and AR and even AI can only take us so far if I'm not involved. Because then I'm simply just watching a different version of TV. It's 3D TV, really. It's just 3D TV. Eventually my senses will get sick of that because I'm not involved in it.
Yeah.
Which is why I used to like watching The Voice, because we can vote. We actually have a choice about who wins. Yeah. Last thoughts, Sally, before you go, because I do want to give you the permission, and I want to even force you to go to bed because it's now 2 a.m. in the morning there in London.
I know.
What are your thoughts on this interactivity?
I'm up at 6, so I'm going to be on vapors, I think. But in terms of just living on the air. But what was I going to say? Personalization of experience for me. So I think we've got to have things that are tailored, because some people like to be a passive viewer of something and they want to absorb. We all learn and consume content in different ways. So for me, I think it's having that kind of toolbox so that you've got something different for different types of audiences and for everyone. I'm like you. I like to be really interactive and involved. So I like that community experience. But equally, I do content in different ways. So I use Zencaster for really good quality audio for some podcasts that I do. I increasingly use StreamYard for the video versions of that. Both. But sporting events that you were mentioning there, Tour de France would be a great example of that. about audiences being involved. So not just only commenting on what they're seeing in the races, but actually having access to the data. They do incredible stuff with, non-competitive data, should we say. They do a lot of that and make it available for open data sharing. So you get this citizen community, and you're predicting what's going to happen at the next breakout, et cetera, et cetera. They get really involved in analysing it and sharing all that on social media.
Look, that's an extremely good example. Yeah. That's an extremely good example of where tech is better than real life. I can just imagine you're at the Tour de France and you've got a 100-metre window and you wait all day for the riders to ride past one time. Like being at the cricket.
Either in the rain or on the open sun. I was there. It's fantastic experience, but like you said, yes, you're watching them shooting.
And they go past. I know what you mean. I waited all day for that.
And actually, Keith, you look over to grab your drink, and as you grab your drink, you see out of the corner of their eye.
Look, I'll give you a real good example. I remember going to the cricket. Cricket's a very big thing for me. So I remember going to the cricket with my dad, and we've been there, and we're on the first day of the first test, and we're all lined up, and we've come down from the country, and we've stayed overnight, and we've been watching the cricket for 4 hours, and nothing's happening. The openers are still in. And I said, look, Dad, do you mind if I just go to the toilet? Yeah, you can go to the toilet. I'll mind your seat. And then I get back, and 2 people went out while I was in the dunny. And I'm thinking, I waited 4 hours, nothing happened. I went to the toilet for 2 minutes, and like the first drop came out, and he got a golden duck. And within 2 minutes, 2 people were out. I missed it. There's no replay, right? I really remember being so pissed off at that because we'd come down from the country and we'd stayed overnight. We'd made all these plans, and we watched diligently 4 hours on our seat. Didn't move. Didn't have a toilet break for 4 hours, busting. And so I'm really making the point. I'm really making the point here that the digital world can be better than real life because you get access to the data back. Look, I could imagine you going to the Super Bowl and sitting in the stands on a freezing cold night and watching this game and paying $3,000 and seeing the halftime show or whatever those ridiculous figures are, and then you're there, but you're so far away you can't even see the ball. Whereas you can watch it on the telly and you can see the replay and you can see how we caught it and you can see the setup and you can get the stats and you can play the game. I'm all for the online experience, and so the events are just playing that out, aren't they, Sally? They're just playing this idea out more.
And also, this might be too strong a word for it, but democratizing some of the power as well. So going back to that Tour de France example, I think it's fascinating where you've got like the everyday person, so to speak, for want of a better expression, being able to give their view on what's going to happen next. Right. Being able to crunch that data themselves, give their own opinion. And you almost get this like almost a little competition between like the traditional analyst role. And you get this great banter, that you were mentioning earlier on, sharing those ideas, who's going to be right in that particular occasion. So it creates a whole different level of engagement. So I think that's really interesting as well. So it's experience and it's engagement and just taking that to greater and greater levels, whether that's using AI or immersive technologies. Or
it's just the evolution of content, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just the evolution of content. I used to sit down and wait at 7:30 for my show to start, Cop Shop or whatever it was when I was growing up, Cop Shop or Your Neighbours or, whatever show was on in the 70s. But the point is that, you used to have to line up and sit down at 7:30 and the show was on, and then you'd have to do something when the ads are on, and you're thinking, this is very one-dimensional. I'm not involved at all.
That was fear of missing out. In the 70s and 80s, you had to watch it. Otherwise, you could not watch the game.
Countdown
until maybe a couple
on,
years later, they might do a
on a Sunday. And you'd fight with your dad because he wanted to watch the gardening show and your mum wanted to watch the cooking show, and we've got one TV in the lounge room. And, that was all we had. So it makes sense. It just makes sense that we want more devices. Look, that's all right. You watch the gardening show. I'll watch this really cool thing on my iPad, my iPhone, my Samsung device, whatever you got. And so it's the democratization of content. As things become more affordable, more people can take part. We get to hear more voices. We're not just getting the stuff from the top. It's a very key part of your strategy, isn't this whole idea of democracy, isn't it? This idea of fairness. I've been following you a long time, and I know that's a very key part of your wisdom, isn't it?
It is, yeah. My non-profit is all about this particular area. So we scale projects that are around tech for good and around things like STEAM learning. So education and technology hand in hand. But we work across the globe. We set up hubs and we do a very much digital version of all these things as well. So it's all about taking down barriers to access through technology and through education. So yeah, it's a huge passion area of mine. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, absolutely. I could talk about
you've got to get up in 4 hours. I want you to promise me you're going to go to bed and you're going to have a good sleep, and I'll do all the work here. I'll do all of the research here and do some snippets for you. And by the time you wake up, you'll have something in your inbox. So I'm going to play a bit of a pattern interrupt. You go and have some sleep, enjoy your day, and we'll come back and we'll pick up on what's happened here.
Awesome. Speak soon, everyone. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye, Sally. Bye.
You should do a voiceover countdown, Keith.
Yeah, I should do this. Now we're waiting for the new phase of the new show. I just made that up.
Moving.
Yeah, voice of God, Keith. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, here we are. Mark couldn't come, so this part of the show now doesn't exist. This is what this show was going to be. But, let's pick up on what happened there in the last hour. Just do a wrap up, and then I want to talk about what's happening with Mark and why what's happening with Mark proves our point that indeed online events are better than real life. But what do you think happened, Irene, with all that stuff with Sally? Pick up on what you picked up there, the key points.
My key point, democratization. Okay, something that lowers the entry barrier, I'm in it. Okay, something that artificially creates scarcity. Okay, I am not for it, because if you create scarcity for your content, like our friends at Clubhouse right now, I will think once or twice, because to me it's important to make sure that, again, people who are there in this world, they have to be part of the new development of the exciting digital economy.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
the exclusivity is a bit unfair, isn't it?
It doesn't make sense even, because I'm sure it's fabulous content that's not available for everyone. But I can tell you one thing, when you're holding something so near and dear to your heart and you're not letting people in close to it, it's been tried before in history, that doesn't work on long run. And I've learned from a lot of wonderful creators, YouTube leaders and Gary Vee and fantastic leaders out there. They say, you know what? Open up. Don't afraid to open up, that you will let something out, your precious thought or your precious content, okay? Yeah. Or something that open up. Don't worry if you're not monetizing it, if you're not grabbing the most credit on it now, please, right? This is 21st century. We're different creatures now comparing to all.
Yeah, it's 1 + 1 = 3, isn't it? I mean, 1 + 1 = 3. I have an idea, you have an idea, where when we come together, we create something more.
We don't have to charge for it every second, because frankly, right, what we're creating now by collaborating, okay, coming from completely different backgrounds, from all the different kind of cultural backgrounds and all that, right? At the same time, we're creating something really good. That's why for me, again, entry barrier is a kind of a big moment.
There's a difference between collaboration and exclusivity kind of thing too. Like I see them as different, right? Like, yes, I can talk about my strategies and my tactics and all that kind of stuff, and I'm happy to share those. That's because not everybody, I was going to say nobody listens, right? Not everybody really cares. And I think that's the difference. Whereas if you have that exclusivity, you say, this is my restaurant, I'm only taking 10 people an hour, right? And it's been known to be the case where, if a restaurant actually reduces that number of people coming through, it actually creates a better experience. It creates that opportunity for people to have quieter conversations, and people are willing to pay for it too. They will pay for that,
and both will coincide. I mean, if you take, say for instance, you take the point of view of public schools versus private schools to me are exorbitant, but it could be argued the experience of education is different, and so if you could afford it, why not?
Well, here in Australia, like they're huge, like private paid schools are like huge, and in Canada they're not. Yeah, they have a few of them, right? But here it's like everybody clamors to get into the local private school because it's private, right? And people will spend tens of thousands of dollars a year, for that exclusive opportunity or that honor. And back to my example with Apple, right? They actually manufacture that demand. They don't release 100 million iPhones on day one, right? They will release it in batches. They'll have sort of a launch, but guess what? How many people can you fit in a line? How many people can you fit in a store? So they've created those barriers, and yeah, they are just psychological barriers. But
they can actually create a demand, which means they can charge more.
They work, right? Yeah, and it is they are expensive devices, but they are decent as well. So you can manufacture this demand in advance, and that's, to me, that's how a successful business does it. There's a difference between collaboration, which is what we're doing, as opposed to let's create that exclusive event where, it's the velvet rope treatment, and if you want part of this, it's a VIP treatment, and yes, if you have the dollars, you can come in and join our club. It's maybe not the best system, but I think it's attractive to humans because we want to be part of this. We want to be able to be part of this exclusive club and get. Well,
let's take the world of fashion. Let's take the world of fashion. I remember even me, the most unfashionable person I personally know, and I went to a nightclub and I saw my favorite band and I thought, there's a guy there with my shirt on. Really pissed me off. Really, really pissed me off. And I thought I bought a brand new shirt at Target. And I thought, well, maybe I should have spent maybe $20 extra and gone to a special shop so that I can go to fashion is a very good example of this. Nothing worse than when you go to a place and everyone's got your shirt on, right? So there is room for exclusivity, but I think the big question I want to know, and probably no one knows this, but do you think the iPhone only configuration for Clubhouse was, first of all, planned, and second of all, did it contribute to its success, or is that completely randomized?
I think it's a bit of both, right? Like, let's be honest, as a small startup, you don't have the resources to be able to develop something for multiple platforms. So you usually pick a platform and say, this is the audience that I'd like to engage with. So therefore I can, we can start to build this, because they have to build it for something. And that's why some might mistaken the exclusivity too for a beta launch too. Like, it's no different than, some other products out there, some apps, they come out, you try them and they get people to sign up, and sometimes it's free or whatever, right? But the fact
it's taken off and they really didn't expect it.
Yeah. But you have to start development on one platform. Maybe they only had a budget for one, but they really did leverage that, and they had the early adopters go, this is really good. And part of it is because it is really good in my mind, that it's a really cool sort of use of that technology for community building. So
yeah,
they saw that, and look, they had a deliberate strategy. And I mean, I'm not on the inside track, so I don't necessarily know how they're going to unroll it further, but from a development side of things, you start with one platform, you develop, you kind of outroll it to a small test audience, and then you roll it out to a beta audience, and then it's like for release, because now you have the funding to be able to develop it on Android or whatever the case may be. So I don't think they're deliberately delaying the Android launch because of exclusivity, because they haven't actually finished the development of it.
It's just basically fundamentals of cost. You think it's taken off a bit bigger than they thought, and it might have.
Yeah, and look, it's no different than some of the other ones. Twitter was free, right? Facebook was free, but to get a Facebook invite in like 2005 was pretty hard. It took a while.
LinkedIn was invite only when we first started, wasn't it? Remember that?
It's been a while. I think
it's been a while. Yeah.
Sometimes the memory component is the biggest part of getting old. You just remember all this great stuff. But look, I want to bring in Irene in because I want to mix it up a bit. First of all, I want to say a big hello to Michelle Colvert, who's been doing some tweets for us there in Minnesota, just to pick up on the global vibe. And another good friend of mine here in Melbourne, Olivia Blair, who's actually also tweeting for us. So I think we need to just pick up on what's happening here. The idea is that real life is, a little bit suppressed. Perth is in lockdown. We just had a case today. We're now going to get some more restrictions. You can't go to events. So, Irene, what's the future of these virtual events, and why are they indeed better than real life, and what can we do better?
The future is bright, Keith. The future is very bright. And 2021, and I feel this vibe wherever I go. Maybe my Twitter feed is very targeted, and maybe my LinkedIn and other articles I read. But I feel a lot of noise, a lot of good, healthy excitement around virtual events. Not because we are bumped with a bunch of invitation. Okay, speaking of inclusivity, it used to be different. It used to be, do you have $3,000? Do you plan to spend your $3,000, and so on and so forth? Right now, I get many more invites. Maybe I'm getting more popular, but that's okay too. So all I'm saying is yes, virtual events, everyone doing them, but everyone doing them differently.
Yeah, and what we're doing, and I'm very excited to pick up on what we're doing, because we, just in case you don't know, we are now ramping up for several events. Erica's got an event coming up in May, which is going to be a test case for us. We're almost certainly going to use AirMeet. I'm guessing you're thinking that one's the one of you, because what did you think of it? Have you had a look at it yet?
Yes, I loved AirMeet. So I did poke around. I did not attend the actual event yet on AirMeet. So I'm going to do it next. But as a kind of reviewer and assessor, all right, with my kind of analytical mind on at the moment, okay? So I did poke around. I loved the interface, and I loved how easy it is to get going. Again, I cannot overemphasize. If you invite people to your house, you cannot build 25 different fences around your house without knowing how to unlock it, and kind of let people wander, all across the neighborhood. All right, that's not my kind of how.
And picking up on the mystery, you said it once, but I'm not going to say it. The mystery site. No, Erica paid money to a site to run an event, and she didn't get what she was promised, and she was left with egg on her face with her clients. That is the worst possible scenario, isn't it?
It is the worst. So what I'm saying is, with AirMeet, I loved what I'm seeing. It is very engaging interface. I know it's 2D. It's fine. I don't have to have always the VR everywhere around me. I'm fine. I'm adult with some imagination. For me, what I want in the event, I want it somewhat colorful experience, and AirMeet is good. I poked around, right? And what I love most, because I'm wearing again my business hat almost all the time, I love how they guide the clients, not the audience members, but those paying clients. There are wonderful guidance. How do you organize events?
The onboarding was very good.
Onboarding good, but if you're a host, you need to know your platform through and through. And what AirMeet is doing, they really hand-holding those paying clients who are organizing the events now, okay? And Eric and I, we exchanged a couple of thoughts. There's whole guidance. If you're hosting people, right, what do you need to know about our platform? That's wonderful.
And what do you think, Doyle? We had a look at it last week. I'm very impressed. What do you think of it compared to the experience we had last week?
Yeah, no, I think it's really good. So we've kind of been looking for certain capabilities in sort of that online conference platform, because there are so many different things that you can do. Excuse me. So I have had a good experience with it, and I agree with Irene that the onboarding was good and that sort of thing. I mean, look, there still are pieces missing, but again, sometimes I think we're pushing pretty hard to say, what can we do here? So I think we can look at how are they going to improve them over time, and if you can kind of see them doing that, like no software development company, no app, whatever you want to call it, is sitting on their hands and going, oh, we're not going to do anything. Like Hopin, for example, recently purchased StreamYard, so they see that as an opportunity to be able to live stream easier. StreamYard's great. It's easy. You click a button, add your channels, and away you go and bring in guests. So I think that's fundamentally what they're trying to do here is start with, version 1.0 and slowly build it. So in terms of the conference platform, we're kind of ahead of the game, saying, can you do this? Can you do that? How do we create that better digital experience as well. And again, there's still stuff missing, but I think we can sort of adapt and say, look, this is something that we can do down the road, but right now this is kind of what we're restricted to. And fundamentally, I think our core criteria was, how do we build that community? And I love what Sally was saying earlier about, curated content. Like, that's absolutely key. I've been to some brilliant sessions. They are on Zoom, but they're not just talking heads. There's interactivity, there's fun, there's games, there's some mental exercise, some emotional exercises. So we're not just talking about the same topic for like 3 hours, which is hard. A lot of work.
Well, let me pick up on what you've just said there, because I love live streaming. I love streaming, and I was an early adopter of that. What does AirMeet offer us and listeners and viewers that we can't do here? What are the fundamentals where's the next level? What does AirMeet offer that we can't do here?
Well, it's fundamentally, again, it's the TV broadcast model, as I said earlier. Like, we're stuck. We're stuck in the 70s where you're talking. I mean, we can have the roving reporter coming to you live from Melbourne type thing, but it's still very two-dimensional.
Two-dimensional, yeah.
It doesn't allow you to interact and engage with your audience. And again, you look at Clubhouse, like, that's what it's doing. It's a lot. Your audience, they can come on, onto the stage, if you want to call it that, and talk, and ask questions and respond to questions, and then when they're done, they just quietly leave. Like, it's not a big deal. So
can we do a show on AirMeet and demonstrate it? Do you think we could do a show in this format, and then can you live stream with AirMeet?
Yeah, you can. And it does take a lot of work, though, right? And it's something that, as you expand the capabilities, you have to expand the resources too. So it's not as simple to operate. It's like the halftime show for the Super Bowl, for example. Like, that's a lot of people. You have the commentators, you have the entertainers, you have the broadcasters, you have everybody kind of working together to create this fantastic experience.
Doyle, I was looking at some roles of people, like different teams, to put a show together. So to produce a virtual event, you will have to have a virtual event technical specialist, your go-to person that will use all the whistles and bells and all that, making sure that ship is going in the right direction. It's definitely require person. And this is basically talking about how future work is going to change in digital world.
Yeah.
There'll be more new roles. There'll be so much demand in people, because no robot can really put all these complex, parts of software together. All right. And that's a good, I think, for me, optimistic look into the future. So that you have to have a dedicated specialist who knows the platforms. And yet, just changing direction a little bit, we talk a lot about tech here, platforms, tech. Okay. At the same time, curation, at the same time, good content, it doesn't come from tech. Okay. And I talk a lot about events now, events, that at some point I got a comment, like very critical comment here in where I live, is that I'm talking about events, platforms. It's like in physical world, we talk about events and hotels all the time. Okay. Hotels is not everything in the physical event. Okay. Venue, not everything. So as much as we're excited by these new platforms and what we can do with them, it comes, are we talented? Are we bringing good stuff to good audience?
Well, let me pick up on that. What do you think, if it isn't the tech, what is the key ingredient that makes an event awesome? And I really want to hear your thoughts on this, Doyle, because I know you have some thoughts.
It's you, Keith. It's you, right? Like, look, we do enjoy human to human conversations, right? Human to dog conversations kind of tire after a while, but it's all about, I mean, we're a tribal species. There's a better term for that, but we've always kind of grouped together based on
social. It's called social.
Yeah, there you go. Social media. We need social media. Look, we want to connect with other people. So right now that has been restricted physically, right? We cannot do that. So we have to up the game to say, well, how do we actually do that? How do we create that remarkable digital experience in this space, right? because this is what we have. This is, in some cases, this is all what you have. So how do we make this a lot better, a lot easier for that fundamental need to connect with other people? And yes, not everybody wants to connect with other people. They'll go live in the outback, which is fine. But for those who do want to connect with others, how do we do it? And besides that, like, this is, again, one of the coolest points ever is that, Keith, you know, we've connected 3 people from 3 different parts of the world. And for me to get to Connecticut takes like over a day to do that.
And London even further, isn't it?
Yeah, so we can do that, and all we did was click the button. It's like Keith sent the link. Here's the link. Click, and away you go. I had some Chrome problems, but that's okay, right? We can sort.
Let me pick up on what you've just said there. So last week we used StreamYard, and we got this look. This look was a couple of people on the screen having a bit of a laugh. But here's what AirMeet does. This is genius.
Yep.
You know, this is what they call the social lounge. I've been really fully exploring this, especially given what happened last week. So you can have up to 8 people in a room. They're chatting as if they were in a room. Yeah. You can actually have 4 people in a room and make it like a business class experience, you know, more exclusive. And so you've got actions that you can take that simulate the real world. And
can you broadcast to all of the rooms simultaneously, like as the host? Can you send a message?
No, I think the rooms are private. I think the rooms are private. So the way that rooms work is that you've got a room of 8 people and they can talk to each other. Mm-hmm. And that's the point. And you can make it 4 or 8, up to 8. And I think you were saying you can have up to 48 rooms, which is a total of 384 people. So that is something more than what we're getting here. This 2-dimensional thing where you're talking or I'm talking. And if you really want to, you can make some comments on the side. You know, hello, everyone. I'm listening in on Periscope. How you doing? That's the extent that we can use. And even that's pretty funky. But, you know, we can't really do anything more than just watch the guys on the screen and make a small comment in either Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn. And that's not enough, is it? I think we're past that now, aren't we?
Yeah, and we kind of have to look at a lot of, like, you've done some great surveys, Irene and Keith, and one of the comments that came up is that some of the best interactions at a conference is not sitting in your chair listening to a conference presenter, right? It's in the foyer, it's in the lunchroom, it's, you know, all these different places. So we really kind of need to be able to give people that opportunity to do that, to connect, because again, that's why we go there. We go there to learn. But we also go there to meet people. And to me, that's what's really been missing with the Zoom feature, is that it is quite linear. Yes, we can go into breakout rooms, but again, it's like, you know, it depends on the content. It depends on the host. Maybe they haven't planned for it. Whereas if I just want to go, I can leave a presentation. I can go into the arena. The lounge rather, and I can just meet people and have a conversation. Hey, were you just in, which session were you just in, kind of thing. And it's video. It comes down fundamentally to this. But at least
I do love the idea of tables. You know, it's very simple, but to me it's pretty powerful, because I'm not going to engage with 500 people in the room. Okay, I don't know where to begin, and I'm pretty social, you know, by my personality. But when you're around, when you have like 7 people next to you, you're kind of more open to talk, right? To kind of figuring out how you're doing today, right? What's on your mind?
You can confine it. It's not so overwhelming, isn't it? Look, I want to pick up on 2 other things. First of all, I want to pick up on the idea of getting the recording. This is my fundamental beef, that I've spoken at events in the city and I spoke well and I didn't get a recording. And I'm thinking, you know, that's a piece of my history that is gone forever. I've always been very annoyed by that. So one of the things I love about online events is you can record. But the other thing I want to ask you about, Irene, is what about from the point of view of the client, not the point of view of the customer, the person that's going to the event? We all know that there's plenty of tech around making the customer feel better. But what about the ROI of the client that's paying all this money? You've done this yourself. You've paid thousands, hundreds of thousands, and there's no way you can measure it. Is this new technology, is this new phase going to really play out in the ROI space? What are your thoughts there?
Yes. And just today, I got fantastic confirmation to that point. I'm gonna drum roll to this new interview we're gonna release soon with Erica McKenzie. She is running Global Digital Marketing Summit, and she can compare physical event with digital event that she's done a couple of months ago, another smaller one. So point is her face lighting up when I asked her about ROI, physical and digital, as a budget holder, as organization in charge of the event. It's day and night. Okay.
Wow.
So all
Well,
this
tell me what you think. In what way is it day and night? Is first of all, it's measurable, and she made more money.
Virtual is immensely more profitable for businesses. Just let me put it this way: it's not ROI, it's profit. It's clear profit, because what they're able to achieve, all these companies, right? They get people together. People will come. They're captive audience. They cannot go to physical events, so they will come, right? At the same time, when you provide right content to right audience, you still have to build your marketing strategy. You still need to know your audience. No one is going to do it for you, right? But when you got it right, with platforms now, which are pretty advanced, I would say, all we're talking about, the tech is pretty advanced, all right? With that, with the networking going on, with people, going into event with certain plans, they feel satisfied. They feel satisfied, and they're able to close deals. They're able to touch on new products. And they're able to share, like you said, Keith, share the experience, real life. Hey, those who are not here with me, they'll see my tweets.
Well, as Sally said, that the event that she ran last week is now viewable for 6 weeks to come.
That's what she's talking about. So from budget holding perspective, this is a miracle.
Pick up on this, mate. I really want to pick up on this idea from the client's point of view. People are paying money to run an event, and they can measure the success and they can make more profit. Do you find that to be the case too, Doyle, or would you be an advocate for that position?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at it logistically, how much does a conference at the convention center cost, right? And so obviously there are still some costs, as Irene mentioned, to be able to have that digital version as well. And depending on all the bells and whistles, you're still talking obviously a good or a high expense too. It's not free, so people need to understand that it's not really free, because you need all those people, you need those resources. But fundamentally, if you're looking at it, there are a huge number of costs as well in just producing event. And I mean, I've produced some smaller events kind of thing, but if you're talking like large scale events, like look at the logistics involved in getting that, all that equipment, all those people, all those resources throughout, the food and entertainment, right? Like lunches and dinners and all that kind of stuff. Like there's a massive cost, and people are seeing it too. It's like they don't really have that expense. Like sometimes you go to a conference because it is in a different city. If you want to, right? It's an experience. You kind of make a little holiday out of it, or a little tour around the city as well. So it can be fun, don't get me wrong, but the fact is that for people who do a lot of conference time to go see the city, you don't have time to sightsee because you're on a plane getting there, you're in the taxi to the hotel, you're prepping, you're performing, and then you're off to the next presentation. So there's a huge amount of fact that you need to decompress. You have to sort of understand, what can I do here?
Yeah, I just wanted to. I cycled through a couple of those choices. So the idea that if you wanted to, once a year, maybe you could make an event a holiday, and you could go to an event, and you could actually then go on a holiday for a week or two in Miami, or Orlando, Florida, or Las Vegas, or Budapest. But the point is that you can't do that every week, and the cost and the sheer demands on going to events all the time is just restrictive. So there's probably millions of examples of where online events are better for the consumer. But what I really want to play out, and we might even do a special show on this, I really want to play out on the idea that the client, the person paying the bills for the room, for the food, for the hotel, for the speakers, they get benefit. And I can't wait to hear this interview with Erica about how she's noticed demonstrable benefits. Yeah.
Absolutely, and it's not so hard to demonstrate, because basically, how do you count? Basically, how do you assess the success of your event? Either, right, marketing exposure, because a lot of events, they're client-facing events, right? Or you can tie deal closing, right? You can tie new business, right, as a result of the event. So as restricted as we are in digital format, it's not precluding people from acquiring a good product, okay? If anything, we search all the products online anyway first. Either it's big software buy or it's small consumer item, okay? So this is right up this alley that we research first, and only then we make any kind of purchase or action. So
one of the things you picked up on there, and I want to pick up on this idea, is that the big value proposition for me going to an online event is that I can get someone's LinkedIn account, their Twitter page, their Facebook account, and I'm there. I've got my phone, I just get it and I sign up. Whereas we've all had this adventure where we go to an event and we get 100 business cards and we promise ourselves that we're going to lock ourselves in a room and contact, but we never do. I never do. I'm an Aquarian. I never do. And even if I did, I'd have to spend hours and hours and hours.
It's very tiresome. I do
it's
that.
Tiresome.
It's very tiresome, I can tell you. Yeah.
But with an online event, you've got the idea of saying, hey, mate, you're at an event anyway, and there's your LinkedIn button right there on the page. It's such a no-brainer. Are the sites doing this as well? I don't think AirMeet does, but others do. Do you think that's an advantage?
Oh, it's huge. Yes. Yeah. No, please go ahead.
It's huge. Like that's why we join in on a digital event, is because we want to connect with people. So having that accessible and available to connect with you on LinkedIn, that's fantastic. Like I run a couple of networking events on Zoom, and it's important that obviously people, share their LinkedIn and that sort of thing. So it's quite clunky for something like Zoom.
Because you've got to physically write it in, haven't you? You've got
or you copy and paste. But if people they don't copy it all, then it doesn't sort of appear, kind of thing. So Zoom's quirky like that. But what I also encourage is that don't just connect with them with a connection request. Send them a cute little message or a fun little message to say, hey, I was just at this networking event. Cool to meet you as well. So you actually start a conversation. So it's not just connecting, it's how can you have a conversation. And look, not everybody's going to develop into partners or friends or clients or whatever. But at least you have that starting point. But I think it's important to have the tools available, and B, do something about it, so that you don't just have a connection, you have a real connection with that person as well.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap up. It's 20 past 12. We've been going about 80 minutes, and we had Sally on for the first one, and we'll do these again. Why don't I give you last chances to just wrap up what we've talked about in the key points, and also to talk about Erica's event, which is coming up. This is the 2019 version, which we did and I spoke at, but it's going to be 100% virtual now. And, we had people calling in from all over the world. What do you think the future of events are? Are we going to go back to going into the city, or will we spend 100% online, or will it always be a hybrid from this point forward? You go first, Doyle.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Keith. Look, it's going to be a hybrid, because as we kind of get out of this pandemic, you will have people that go to events, which is totally fine. There are going to be, the pockets that are just digital, and the ones that say, well, maybe we can have a combination of both, right? But for those that say, oh, we're only going to have live events on location, guess what? They're going to miss out, because not everybody's going to want to go. And the fact is that, look, if you can have an audience that's not sort of centralized, it's decentralized. As I said, like all of us are connecting from around the world here. Why wouldn't you want to have somebody at your conference that you're running in Jamaica, for example, with Erica, from around the world? Not all of us could go to Jamaica, even though it could make you could make a little bit of a holiday of it. But the fact is that I can't, or I don't want to, or it's a conflict. So why wouldn't you kind of give that capability, that opportunity for a bigger audience, a global audience from around the world to connect with you simultaneously and asynchronously as well afterwards? So, to me, there's a massive opportunity for those companies that see, hey, wait a sec, we can have conferences, cool. We can also have hybrid conferences, which is much better, and we can have digital conferences that are, excel at that as well.
That's brilliant. What do you think? Irene, what do you think the future is? Do you think we'll go back to a real event culture, or do you think we'll have a hybrid, or do you think the digital thing will be popular too? There's three possible scenarios.
Yeah, we will be hybrid. We will be hybrid, and it will be different hybrid from physical, because you know what? I just remembered, how exhausting it is to be at, let's say, 3 or 4 days physical event. And a lot of colleagues I worked with, everybody's saying, I'm walking 50,000 steps that day. I don't sleep. I'm away from good food. I eat junk. I'm so exhausted that these 4 days I need to recover for a month. I mean, all the excitement and it's all good, right? But miss the kind of opportunity of taking care of yourself and feeling yourself, okay? So that's kind of in the past, I think, because what we will have by hybrid, I mean, there will be big stages. We want big shows, okay? There will be big stages. They're not going to be, those arenas will not be filled with all the attendees. Okay, I'm sure those days are gone. Okay, what will happen? Again, 2021 prediction from Irene is basically we will have stages. We will have excellent performers because they need space to perform.
Yeah.
Okay, they need to show what they can do for us. Absolutely. But we will have the option. So you want to pay, if you want to be in person, do that. And again, for the rest of us, we're going to prioritize where we want to be and when.
Yeah, well, look, and I use the example of, and we started here way back maybe a year ago, where we talked about the idea that I was asked 2 years ago to go to Jamaica. And just about everyone that I talked to can't believe that I didn't go. But the truth is that it's a 27-hour flight. A combination of 27 hours in the air with 3 breaks: Melbourne, LA, Miami, Kingston, Jamaica. And I didn't do it because I said exactly what you said. I might go to this event and I might dig it while I'm there, but it'll take me a week to recover. And plus it was going to cost me $2,700. Like the return flight, not including accommodation, was $2,700. And sure, I would have made that back at the back end when the event went okay, but I had to fork it out initially. And I thought, well, those two things, $2,700 and 27 hours on a plane, meant that I pushed Erica really hard, and she was really resistant at the start. But I did this on Zoom, 12:30 at night, my time. I spoke for an hour. There was 150 people in the room, and there was 50 people in a chat room using Adobe Connect. So a total of 200 people got to see my wisdom. I got a recording. It was sent to YouTube. And here we are again 2 years later running it again. So, we are going to enter into a sort of a hybrid state. And I can't wait to see how this goes. I think we're using StreamYard here today, but I think we probably have a use case for running an event on AirMeet, and we will bring you variations. We have a Facebook group now. You're welcome to join that. We have a YouTube channel. You're welcome to go there. I have a Periscope account for as long as that lasts. And whatever happens after that, we'll have to see. But we are doing some great work here, and I'm very, very proud of that. So I just want to thank everyone for listening, and Olivia and Michelle and Sally for calling in, and Michelle and Olivia for commenting. Thanks for making all those comments in the Facebook group and the YouTube channel. So I'm going to wrap it up, and I'll have some recordings, some smaller recordings, some snippets available in the next few minutes. So thanks again, guys, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Keith.
Bye. Thank you,
Thanks,
Keith.
Irene.
Bye. Thank you, Doyle.